One of the most common questions I get asked by business owners, and it's also one of the most important, is what's the right price for my product? And how do I come up with that price? Well, there are a lot of different approaches to pricing, and some are easier than others, and some are more appropriate. So let's take a look at some of those cost pricing alternatives so you can decide what the right price is for you. The first is the most simple, and this is the one that I think a lot of folks, particularly in construction and contracting industries, fall back on. It's what's called the cost plus. You figure out what it costs you to build or to provide a service, and then you simply add your profit margin on top of it. So the cost plus your profit margin. If it costs $100 to build and you want to make $25, you sell it for $125. The problem with cost plus pricing is that just because it costs you that much to make really doesn't mean that you're pricing it appropriately. Sometimes I've seen situations where cost plus results in a price of $125, but people might be willing to pay $200, $300, or even $500. And that's where you really start looking at something called value-based pricing. And this is where you look at, if somebody buys your product, what's it worth to them? If you're selling a business tool or a resource and you're going to save that customer money, how much money will you save them over the course of a year? What's that worth? If you're selling a car, what is that car worth in terms of time saved, that they don't have to use public transportation? How much value does a customer put on the product? You probably have to do some market research to figure that out. Another approach is what I call the market position. Here, you take a look at what all your other competitors are doing price-wise. What are they charging for the same product or service? And then you have to decide, do you want to be a market leader, higher than everybody else? Do you want to kind of be in the middle of the pack? Or do you want to be the low-cost service provider? You decide what position you want to occupy in the marketplace, and you set your pricing accordingly. A word of caution, it's really hard to be the low-cost provider because someone is always going to come along who can do it a little bit cheaper. And that's not a defensible long-term position. One of my favorites is capacity-based pricing. Here, you decide what your pricing should be based on how many units you can deliver. If you're selling your time and you only have 40 hours for the week and you're booking up 30, 35 hours, you probably want to raise your price. If you discover that you really have lots of free time, that you're not selling a lot of your time and you've got a lot of available time or a lot of available inventory, you can drop your price and sell more. So your price is really driven by how much is in your warehouse, how much capacity does your team have to build and deliver whatever it is you're making. Another strategy is the quantity discount. Here, what you're trying to do is influence buyer behavior, get people to come back and buy more of your product or service. And so you either offer a discount for a full year contract or a discount if they buy 8 units or 10 units or 20 units. The advantage to the customer is they save money, and the advantage to you is you've got lower selling cost because you don't have to find a new customer for each one of those units. You can also construct what's called a product bundle, where you sell 2 or 3 different products, but when you put them together, the bundled price is less than buying each of those units individually. Like the quantity discount, the benefit to the customer is savings, and the benefit to you is you don't need to find as many customers. And finally, the last question I really want to touch on about pricing is, when do you raise your price? And I think this is a study that you should do on a regular basis. You should take a look at 10 sales and ask yourself, if I raise my price 5% or 10%, how many customers would I lose? I'm going to do a little math for you real quick. You'll need to figure this out for your business. But let's say you sell your product for $100 and you sell 10 units. That's $1,000 in sales. Now you raise your price 10%. Now you're selling it for $110, but you're going to lose one customer. One customer is going to say, no, that's too expensive. Well, now you have 9 sales at $110. You make $990. You do lose $10, but you have that extra capacity or time to take, or an opportunity to take some time off and really make essentially the same amount of money. So that's a calculation that you should do periodically and ask yourself, if I raise my price by this much, how much am I really going to lose? And often it's not very much. If you've got more questions about pricing and other business and marketing issues, be sure to stop by the digital toolbox to find those additional resources and answers to your